So because I can see my full screen, so maybe from time to time I will check if everything is working well. Firstly, again, it's great honor to be able to deliver this training today. My name is Steve, so I'm working in the Alibaba Cloud Training and Education team. So today the topic is DevOps, but we know DevOps is a very big topic. So with the time limit, we will focus on this following points. Hopefully, I would emphasize the target of the training today. Based on this training, hopefully you can have some takeaway from my session. Firstly, is you will have a directly understanding about what is Alibaba Cloud Container Registry and what is Alibaba Cloud Container Service and their highlights, and especially and more importantly about the selling point. The secondly is about I will do the live demo. So through the demo, hopefully you can understand how can we connect the container registry and the Alibaba Cloud Container Service, especially for GitHub and GitLab, and how can we connect them together to create an automatically software pipeline. After you check in one code, it can automatically deployed to your product environment. Okay, so that will be the two major learning points and learning target I will going to achieve today. So let's look into the first slide. So what is DevOps? I believe 1,000 people may have 1,000 ideas about DevOps, but from the left chart, you can see when we talk about DevOps, we're actually talking about two bunch of people, the developer and operation guys, right? So before the DevOps concepts come out, these two bunch of people, they cannot work very well together. Previously, developers, they only care about how fast I can deliver the software. But on the contrary, the operation guys, they were more concerned about how can I make the system more stable. And even some small changes, I need to make sure it doesn't break my existing running product or the system. So they have two totally different demands and requirements. But all in all, when we look into the right chart, we see there are two things we need to think about talking about DevOps collaboration. Not only we need to make sure the whole software development value chain can be run very smoothly, starting from the source code management to the continuous integration through the test and some configuration deployment, and finally your product may go to the market, right? So this line, how can we make it more smooth? Another direction we need to consider for DevOps is how can we still organize our project and smooth and possible, which means starting from the project planning, we want to track the project where it is, just like the agile methodology. And finally, between the developer, testing engineer, and project manager, and even the operation guys, we can using some collaboration tools to communicate. So all in all, this is the idea of the DevOps. And in the following slides, I will go on more and more details to illustrate how Alibaba Cloud really implement these ideas. Okay. But one guy, we shouldn't forget his name. It's called Patrick. So this guy initiated the idea of the DevOps. Okay, so just remember his face. Starting from the year 2009, this guy borrowed the idea from a company, the Flickr, and they are trying to introduce the concept of DevOps and organize the first DevOps summit in year 2009. And now it's such a popular idea for every engineer and software engineer know. DevOps is very important. I don't think I need to spend too much time to talk about its importance, right? So regarding to the quality improvement and make your software development it's more scalable, and also to bring your work more efficiency. I want to emphasize here is about the cost saving. So why the DevOps can bring cost saving to your organization? It's just because there's a very famous saying that if you fix something too late, it will cost you even much, right? So we are developers. We all know that if your software had a bug, for example, if your software has a bug, if the bug was not found until the product was already released to the customer, then if you want to call back the software and sending a patch to the customer, you can imagine how much cost you may have. But instead, if you found this bug in a very early stage, like even they checking their first code after running the unit test, the system automatically feedback that you have a bug here. That will save you a lot of cost, right? So think about that. That is the key value of the DevOps, to make sure your whole product line, the software development product line, running much faster, and the feedback can be gained much faster. So here, I'm trying to show this slide. I'm not trying to scare you out. I'm just saying that, again, regarding DevOps, there's so many kind of choices you can make. Because if we split the DevOps into the different categories, later on we will introduce the idea of how can we split the DevOps into a different category. But we do have a lot of choices. But how can we make a better choice through such a big menu, right? If you are ordering in the restaurant, right, we give you such a big menu, how can I pick up the one I really need? So I will going to introduce what Alibaba Cloud can offer based on this very big chart. Before we move to the specific dishes we prepare for you, and we can review the software development procedure a little bit deeper, okay? Because some people, before the broadcasting, they feedback that they may be more interested in the CI/CD process. So here, when we talk about continuous integration, and when we talk about continuous delivery, what actually we're talking about? Through these three small milestones, you may be able to understand what we are actually talking about. Because again, if you are a developer, when you read down the first line of the code of the software, the first thing you need to do is maybe check do some testing, make sure the code is very well organized. Then you do your first build. Because usually the developer, they own a small module, right? They develop their own feature or own module. Then they pass the unit test. And then they begin to collaborate with other teams, because other teams are in charge of the other modules or other features. And put all these features together, we call them the integration, right? That is the integration process. How can we put the different software module and the pieces together and make sure it can be bundled into a software package, including all the functions we want to provide for this release, right? So that is software package. You package your software, make sure it's installable, it's testable, it's stable. Then you deliver it. You deliver it to your customers through the different channels, like the app store, right? Or you can sell it nowadays people seldom do that. Maybe you can sell it in a disk, right? Or nowadays we have the SaaS kind of software, right? You can just release it on the browser, so your customer can access your new version of the software directly and immediately. So that is called software delivery, right? We want to deliver to someone else. And after the product was used and released, you may find some problems from the customer, some feedback, and you do the bug fix, and you go back to the first step, and you continue and repeat the whole software life cycle. Okay, so that's the basic idea of the software integration and software delivery. It's called a continuous integration and a continuous delivery, because we want to continue this cycle again and again, and make the cycle can be running and be turned over even faster and faster as we can. So we want something can do the continuous integration and continuous delivery. So now you know the continuous integration concept, right? But what is delivery? Now let's look into two kind of possible infrastructure to deploy your software to the production environment. Again, I'm naming this slide as a hypervisor-based infrastructure for a reason. Because previously, when we talk about DevOps, maybe 3 years ago or maybe 10 years ago, we were still talking about the physical deployment of your software. Okay, so when you look into this part, after you develop your software, after you make your first release, you want to install it into an environment called the test, right? So you want your QA team to test it. And then you want to put your software into an environment called the stage environment. What is stage environment? Which means you are still not very confident about your software deployed directly into the product environment. You want to put in a stage environment where the whole environment is very much like a real customer environment. So you have your software running there for maybe 1 week or even 3 weeks. Make sure everything is working fine. Now that you have more confidence to move to the product environment, right? But at that time, and I said, you were trying to leverage the hardware and maybe the virtual machine from the cloud, all this kind of DevOps continuous integration idea is based on this kind of workflow, right? The developer submits the code into the source code repository, and you have some CI, continuous integration server, and CD server to organize all the package and build the image, right? That's why you need some storage, like the OSS, to store something called the ECS image, right? It's an operating system image, including your software stack. Then all your environment you need to deploy will pull the package or pull the image from here, right? Then finally, through the CD server scheduling, they can be put here, here, or here. So at that time, because we are using the hypervisor-based infrastructure like the ECS or on-premise hardware, the tools we are trying to leverage is something like the Terraform or Alibaba Cloud Resource Orchestration Service. Or you may be familiar with configuration management like the Ansible, Chef, or Packer, right? But nowadays, this is obsolete. I don't think too many companies will still working on this kind of infrastructure, because regarding DevOps and Docker, we are moving to something like this. This framework looks pretty much like the previous one, but the fundamental is different. The fundamental infrastructure is different, because now I'm saying your test environment, your state environment, and the product environment now are all deployed through container instead of the ECS or the physical hardware, right? We were putting the environment in the container. So more specifically, I would say the Kubernetes whole infrastructure. Also, at the same time, the image build, we don't put it into OSS. It's not a good choice. Now, what we put it into? We put it into a container registry, okay? Remember, the container registry is a product we use to hold all the image, the Docker image you build, so that we can always have this environment being able to pull some image, the most latest image from there. The other part are still the same, the Git part and the CI/CD. But who will play the CI/CD's role? I will give you a more explanation later on. So nowadays, regarding the DevOps and the Docker-based infrastructure, DevOps infrastructure, we are talking about some new tools like the Kubernetes, right? Like the container registry, even the Prometheus. If you know, Prometheus is for the logging and the monitoring, right? And we can even leverage the Lambda idea, like the function compute from Alibaba Cloud, to do some very quick service deployment and glue scripting development. Okay, so I want to use these two pictures to give you the idea about how we are moving now. The IT infrastructure is moving from the ECS-based DevOps to the Docker-based DevOps. Remember this, it's called the GitOps. It's very important. Okay, now we have a basic idea, understand about the DevOps. Let's look into the Alibaba Cloud products. So here, I will recall the concept like the DevOps. How can we split it into the different category? Because for the human being, our learning habits is if we can split one concept into the small pieces, so we can grab and understand each piece very well, so we can wholly understand the idea. So DevOps, we split into the different category, like the IAC. So what is IAC? IAC is the infrastructure and code, right? The idea of the IAC is previously in the hardware, on-premise database, hardware is hardware. We cannot do software management too much, right? But nowadays we have Docker. So Docker is totally software solution. We can create a Docker and create a different architecture just based on the hypervisor environment. So we turn the whole infrastructure into the software. So it is the infrastructure and the code. That's where the concept is come from. And in the middle, we have a two separation like the PaaS and the CaaS. So PaaS is a very common idea from the cloud computing. It's platform and the service. Okay, so platform service is usually the middle layer, which provides a lot of API and the solutions for the application layer can be referred to and to call from. Okay, and the CaaS is container and the service. It's not a very common idea, but I love it here because we have a full container service products in Alibaba Cloud. And again, the very important concept of CI and CD, Jenkins, very popular, right? From your feedback before the live broadcasting, I see a lot of people will use the Jenkins in your daily work. And today I will also introduce the demo of the GitLab. So you will understand what the GitLab actually can do and can integrate with Alibaba Cloud products. And the last one is logging and monitoring, right? Logging and monitoring is about the feedback. Without the feedback, we cannot improve, right? We need to know what is going on, what is going wrong, and what can we do better, and make sure the whole life cycle can be running again and again. So this is the idea of how can we separate the DevOps into the different category. But honestly speaking, Alibaba Cloud didn't provide everything here because some of the products are we call them the open source tools, but it can very smoothly collaborate with Alibaba Cloud products like Prometheus, like Jenkins, like the Terraform, Ansible. Those are from the open source community, right? But Alibaba Cloud, what we have, you can say Cloud Monitor, our product, log service, very powerful. Code pipeline, you can take a note here. The code pipeline is now only available in the domestic market. Okay, so I would suggest you to consider the Jenkins or GitLab to manage your product and manage your product pipeline. And we have the container service I will introduce today, and container registry, and also the function compute, right? And the ROS. Okay, now let's look into some details. Again, I want to re-emphasize the importance for the Docker and the Kubernetes, the significant change they bring to the DevOps world. Okay, again, because Docker was so lightweight, was so quickly to be deployed and destroyed, which turned over the whole value chain into a next level of the DevOps. Nowadays, you check in one line of the code, right? It only takes minutes. You can go through the unit test, you can go through the deployment, and finally to see your new created line of the code into productive environment. That is all, the benefit gained from the Docker technology and the Kubernetes orchestration capabilities. So it's very important to understand the Docker's positioning in the DevOps world. And regarding Docker, Alibaba Cloud, definitely we are a very strong player in this technology area. Because again, every year, if you know us very well, every year in China is also globally, I think we have a global shopping festival called the Double 11. It has been running for 11 years. So every year, when we talk about auto-scale your resources, nowadays we are trying to use Docker a lot. Okay, you can see we actually extend our backend infrastructure through the Docker and container. Just in several minutes, we can extend our container even thousands of numbers. And with those kind of capabilities, we can process 500,000 orders per second when the peak hour, the Double 11 peak hour is coming. So it's very significant and it's a very proved technology because we have been running it for 5 or 6 years to put our Tmall and Taobao business onto the Docker's infrastructure. Again, we are also a strong player in the Alibaba Cloud. It's strong in the ecosystem, especially the community, and we contribute our code back to the community. And we have been certified as different members and contributors to different organizations. So those are very important and very influential organization regarding to the Docker and the Kubernetes ecosystem. Okay, so I know it's a little bit quick, but because I think most of you have the DevOps background. So all in all, I want to say nowadays we are seeing the cloud native was such a hot concept. So everyone will maybe ask you a question: how can I turn my application into a cloud native application? So no matter it's called cloud native or anything else, you still need to develop it. You still need to package it. You still need to deliver it and deploy it, right? So that's why I'm saying, remember the idea of the importance of the supply chain of your application. So there's one important product called the container registry, which is holding your container image and to try our best to protect your image security and try our best to distribute your image across the world. So that's why I want to introduce our first Alibaba Cloud product. It's called the Container Registry Service, in the short of the ACR. We put the Enterprise Edition here because we have a very strong power and feature about the ACR regarding to the Enterprise Edition. Let's go here directly to the scenarios. You will be understand what I'm talking about. Remember, the ACR is our registry repository, okay, for the container image. One scenario is if you have a big organization, right? You have so many branch offices in the global area. You want to distribute your image here and there, right? But if you want to deliver it, the speed is the key. How can you fastly deliver so many nodes, like 10,000 nodes, maybe in a very fast way? The idea is you can leverage a concept called peer-to-peer distribution, which means every node in your distribution network can be the one trying to pass down the information to the others, which will greatly improve the efficiency of the distribution. So our ACR Enterprise Edition supports this kind of large-scale distribution capability. Okay, you remember this is a very important feature. Another feature is about security, right? You build an image. You want to make sure that image is coming from me. I don't want some image was deployed without verification and validation and to my very important environment. Okay, so our ACR Enterprise Edition will do this kind of monitoring, scanning for the security, and even sign the image. By sign the image, you need to leverage some security keys, which will collaborate with our key management system. And finally, the ACK will accept this kind of secure image, okay? And if someone was trying to deploy something, didn't pass the validation, didn't go through the ACR, it will not be accepted. So this is called a security pipeline. It's very important. And the last one scenario I want to introduce is the image replication. Remember, when you create the ECS in the Alibaba Cloud, we will ask you a question, which region you want to put your ECS at, right? Here to the ACR, same idea. Because when you create the ACR Enterprise Edition, you need to create an instance first. This instance may be in Singapore, maybe in Hong Kong, right? But later on, you want to, synchronize the different repository through the different instance, and we provide this kind of image replication methodology and features. Through the image syncer, we can sync between the different ACR instance, and even we can sync the other registry through our OSS import tools to import them directly to the OSS backend, because actually ACR will use the OSS and the backend. It actually improved the replication efficiency even 7 times. Okay, hopefully through these 3 scenarios, you can have a quick understanding about what Alibaba Cloud Registry can do, especially the enterprise level. So you can introduce this Enterprise Edition to your customer. I strongly recommend it. Then let's look into the one I think most of you are familiar with. It's called the Alibaba Cloud Container Service on Kubernetes. Through this big picture, we are seeing we have a full stack of container service, but we do invest a lot of development efforts and resource to improve it, to make it enterprise level architect. Okay, so in this chart, we may not look into the details, but the red ones are the open source modules, but we do a lot of blue modules to improve it and make it more customized to fit into the commercial environment. And regarding the cluster tabs, if you install open source version, you may have we call them the dedicated cluster, right? But in Alibaba Cloud, we provide you several different types of cluster. The first one is we call them the dedicated cluster. It's a little bit similar like the open source cluster. You manage the master, you manage the work node, okay? But to reduce your operation efforts, we actually provide something else. Like the first one is called the managed cluster, which means you can just totally give the operation work to Alibaba Cloud. We will help you to manage the master nodes, because the master nodes is the most complex one, right? They will do the scheduling, do the work assignment, those kind of things. You only need to work on your worker node. That's all. That is a managed cluster. And we can even give you a more HA solution to put your different node across AZ to do the disaster tolerance. And even sometimes you don't want to manage it. You just want to use the function of the Kubernetes. You can choose our serverless version. Serverless means you don't need to see any nodes, actually. It's transparent to you. But you can still using the Kubernetes control to log into your cluster to do all those kind of Docker-related stuff. Okay, a lot of different choices you can make based on your needs. Especially for serverless Kubernetes, I will recommend for the developers or QA engineers, you just want to have a quick cluster setup, right, to try something out. You can use in our serverless cluster. And there are some very specific features comparison. I will not list them one by one, but later on you can review this slide. I will send it out. So again, if I have to highlight some of the Alibaba Cloud Container Service features, I will start from here. The security, I already talk about that, but especially for the image, right? And some of the identity management. For the deployment, it's such an easy way. You don't need to know all the details. You just choose the node type configuration, some of the configuration of the network, and then you click deploy. So we will do all the backend work for you. And also the integration is also very important, because when you use Alibaba Cloud Container Service, now you can directly talk to the SLB, talk to our OSS, and leverage our auto-scaling to scale your worker node or even the master node, right? And using the monitor log to monitor your every thing happening on your Kubernetes cluster. Also, the DevOps, there's no need to say, right? We can work very well with so many open source software like the GitHub, GitLab, Jenkins, even Terraform, right? You can even use Terraform to provision our ACK cluster. Now let's go to the last one. Let's see some live demo. I think a lot of people are looking for the demos because demo is much more interesting than the slides. So let's look into the demo. Today I prepared 3 demos. The first demo is about the Alibaba Cloud Console. The Alibaba Cloud Container Service for Kubernetes console. I will walk through the console and show you the different types of the cluster, and also give you a very quick peek about the container registry. And the second demo, we'll talk about the DevOps process, right? I will set up a CI/CD process using our container registry and ACK. This one is very interesting because you don't need to have even a build server. You don't need to have a build server. We can build the image. We can deploy the package without using anything else. Just a container registry and ACK. Okay. And the last one I will show you an even more interesting one is if you are familiar with GitLab or not familiar with, I will show you how can you connect the GitLab into our container registry and ACK to make a real pipeline to produce your cloud native application. Okay, let's start from the first one. Now let's go to the browser. I have something prepared here. I may want to go here. Let's start from the Kubernetes. Okay. What you are looking at is my screen. This is our container service for Kubernetes, right? From the overview, you are seeing that I have one class here called demo 1. There are some deployment here. Deployment is a concept from the Kubernetes, and the pods and the stable set. Those are all the Kubernetes concepts. We are showing the status here. If you want to create, how can we create, right? We go here. I already have a cluster, but I want to create a cluster. Oh my God, there are so many choices. Don't be scared by this menu. I personally don't like this menu because when you click inside, okay, when you go inside, you will say, okay, now you feel a little bit released because we give you 4 choices. And I said the dedicated Kubernetes cluster, the managed Kubernetes cluster, right? The serverless one, and another one called the managed edge Kubernetes. So it's interesting because dedicated one, and I said, maybe I should log out and log in. Sorry. My session is already timeout, I think. Hopefully it's not my network problem. So let me try another browser. Maybe I have a browser problem. Okay. I will turn it into English. Okay. Let's go to the container service. And I said when you go to the create, you can create, I will shrink the screen a little bit. Go to the create. So what is dedicated Kubernetes? It is something like this. I will show you here. After you choose a region, this is a region like Singapore. After you choose a VPC and a vSwitch, we will give you the different address block for the different service and the pod. And you can consider the IP address. So the dedicated Kubernetes is something you can always think about, like how can we organize the master and the worker at the same time. If you go to the next page, let's see, let's demo 2. Can I move to the next page? Let's try it, because it's a new stuff. Okay, let's see, switch. You can see we can ask you how many master nodes you are going to manage. Okay, either 3. 3 is the minimum choices. And after you make the zone choice, you can still pick up the ECS instance, because our container cluster was built on the ECS. So you can always choose the different type of the ECS. And now you go to the next, it is the instance for the worker node, right? For the worker node, you can see here, we suggest you to have the 3 worker nodes, but to save some cost, the minimum worker node could be only 1, which means you have only you only need 1 worker to work, right? You have 3 master and 1 work, just like our working environment, right? You have 3 boss, maybe only 1 employee. So for the managed Kubernetes, I think the difference is you don't need to care about the master. You can see here, you can go to the worker directly, because the master, Alibaba Cloud, will take over the management. Okay, and the serverless is even more interesting. And I may not go through the details, but after you choose the serverless, which means you don't need to take care of the master and worker. So you only pick up some network configuration, that's all. I may not create the class in real because I already have one. So I go back to show you after the creation what kind of things you can look at. I already have one cluster created here. It's called demo 1. When you click in, you see this is my dedicated cluster. That's why you can see some of the basic information here, the API access endpoint, entry point, and also some of the related resources, because the cluster will leverage a lot of Alibaba Cloud products. And you can have this kind of certification cached, also copied to the different client, so you can talk to it directly from your own client. And if you go to the nodes, you see, we are showing you that you have, let's see, this is a master, right? I have 3 workers and 3 master. And you can see this CPU memory monitoring. It's because we have the cloud monitor features integrated with this cluster. And you can click the monitor directly here to see some monitoring information. It will lead you to another console. It's our Alibaba Cloud Monitor console. Okay, Also, go back here. If I click more, you see we have some details to show here, right? You can go here to see the each node's details, okay? And you can even see something like this. You can go to the terminal and see all the pods running on the nodes, okay? And if I go here, I think I have another thing to show here. Yes, here. Go back to the cluster menu, right? We have a lot of operations you can do. You can delete the cluster. You can do the auto scaling. So if you are familiar with Alibaba Cloud, we have a product called auto scaling for the ECS. Now, because the whole cluster was built on ECS, so it can leverage the auto scaling very well. If you think the work node is not enough, you can just call the auto scaling to add more and more work node and a master node into it. It's very interesting. So expand, you can, there's also a dashboard here. I click the dashboard to give you another different angle to watch into your cluster. CPU, memory, workload, deployment. Again, I have 2 deployment. I will demonstrate later on. I have several pods running, okay? Even I have some replication set because I want to provide the pod level high availability, okay? So all in all, you can have all your Kubernetes related concepts can be found here if you already have some set up. But that's not all. I will show you another interesting one. It is here. Let's go here, the cluster. I'm not done with the cluster, right? You can upgrade your cluster, which means if you are running some Kubernetes, which is not the latest version, you can still upgrade. Because now I'm already new, so I don't need to upgrade. Here, the cluster auditing. This one is my favorite, my personal favorite, because when you click the cluster auditing, this is a totally, automatically generated dashboard for you. I don't think you can have any kind of this feature from any open source solutions because this is combined to our Alibaba Cloud log service. You have so much details dashboard to show the different factors and parameters or some of the status of your whole cluster. You can see the operation overview. The operation overview means you have, who is doing what in the history. What kind of resources I have. So it's quite a significant dashboard. Operation details. You can also go here to look into the some event, right? Who creates something and who updates something. All in all, it's fantastic feature about to monitor and operate your cluster in a more vivid way. So I recommend you to consider that. Then the other features is more like Kubernetes related, okay? Because you can find all the Kubernetes concept in the GUI console. I have 2 deployment, okay? I have a stateful set. I don't have safe set, but I have a menu here and a daemon set, jobs. These are all the concepts. If you have something created in the Kubernetes, you will already see it here and operate it directly. You can even do something like this. You can create from a template to create a deployment. Just a few changes, right? Changes something like the image name or something. You can create a deployment in just several seconds. You don't need to go to the terminal to use the Kubernetes control. That's such a good advantage. And you have services, ingress, and we even have the service mesh embedded. So later on, if we have more chance, I can introduce our service mesh solution for the Alibaba Cloud Container. So another one is here, is marketplace. It's just like the ECS, right? If you want to use the Kubernetes cluster, you should have a lot of pre-built packages. You can always pick up something from here, like the AHAS, our real-time monitoring of the application, and the high available application service, Prometheus, the logging service, even Jenkins, right? And even I think it's something called the. I remember we have the GitLab also can be deployed through here. You see the GitLab is here, right? So this is very useful, just like the our ECS marketplace, all the YAM or something. You can install a total framework of software just in a single click. and we have some service also. So this is a quick demo about our console. Okay, so now you can see we have a very powerful GUI operation dashboard for the Alibaba Cloud Kubernetes. Also, if you create the cluster, we have so many integration with Alibaba Cloud products. So we'll give you a more vivid management channel and tools to manage this cluster. Okay. So now let's look into another product. We call them the Container Registry. Container Registry. Let's go here. Okay, Container Registry. Again, the idea of the Container Registry I want to highlight and also introduce some feature for the next demo is something like this. It's very interesting. I will click this one. This is a registry. When you create a registry, it's very simple. You choose a region, namespace, give it a name, and that's all. If you go inside, you can see regarding one registry, I have some details, especially for how can I, access my registry. We give you all the command. You can directly copy from here and do the image push and pull, those kind of operation. But here, I think this is my personal favorite feature of our registry. We can have a build here because we were giving you the package building capabilities without charging anything. You can directly build your image in our container registry. Okay, you see, I have been several successful builds before, and you can choose to build it in China domestic and overseas to give you a better speed. And if you open this button, every time you check in a new code and trigger some image change, they will build the image directly. And another very important feature is the trigger. Why we have a trigger here? The trigger, this long string is not from something else, it's from here. I will show something like this. And I said we have a cluster, we already have a Kubernetes cluster here. If you know Kubernetes, there's something called a deployment, right? And I have several deployments here. This is 2 demos I prepared for you. If you go into one of this deployment, like I will go this one. Here, there is a long string here. You can just call the create trigger. Okay, it is called redeployment. And if you confirm the trigger, it will generate a long HTTP hook for you. You just copy this hook and put it into the trigger. Okay, why you want to put it here? Because this trigger will actually be triggered by this kind of build, which means every time you check in one line of code and put it into your code repository, you will be able to see something like the build will automatically begin to build on the backend. And after the build was finished, they will call the trigger directly. And the trigger will notify the deployment here. And your new image will automatically be deployed into the cluster directly. Okay? So that is a very interesting scenario. I will show this demo in the next demo. So another thing I want to show you is, let's say, create a repository. Let's say HTK live demo, public or private, just demo. We just click the next. What I want to show here is, you see, we have the different code repository for you to choose. What is the code repository? Here, I want to clarify the idea of the container image registry and the code repository. It's totally different, okay? Code repository means something like the GitHub or GitLab, or you can put your code locally. Those are the source code where you write down all those development software code, right? If you log into the GitHub, let's go to the GitHub. I forgot the name of GitHub. The way we do is, I have a GitHub, this is my GitHub password. Let's see. Okay, this is my GitHub. Right? I have some code repository here. What I want to do, why I want to log in, because now if you look into this picture, oh, sorry, I need to do this again. Okay, live demo. Here. You see, now I was automatically logging for the GitHub because I have a live login session from the GitHub in the same browser. Okay, then you can just pick up the different namespace. I have a namespace and different repository from the GitHub. Maybe I just pick up one thing like the Kubernetes demo. I pick up some features and create the repository. This is the idea about how you can connect your resource pool. I mean, your code, source code repository with the container registry. Okay, now you have something like this. So in the future, if you go inside, you can always tell others, okay, you can just pull and push the Docker image from here. You can find the latest version of the image here. And also you can set up your own build rules to build those images, okay? So that is one of the demo for the container registry. And also we have an enterprise instance. This is the enterprise level edition. I will go inside it directly. And I said you need to create an instance. I go to the instance inside. You see it's more capable and a lot of good features like I just introduced, right? The P2P acceleration, instance replication, security scanning, and they have the same idea to do the repository namespace, code source. So all in all, remember this, if you recommend to the customer about a container registry, try to recommend them the not only the free one, but also the enterprise one. The enterprise one will bring you even more very interesting features and help your customer to distribute the image globally and worldwide. Okay, so that is the end of my first demo. Okay, now you know the dashboard of Alibaba Cloud Container. You know the dashboard of the container registry and the enterprise edition. What I'm going to do the next demo is like this one. This one is funny, and I said it will leverage a lot of features like the container registry and the ACK. What we do is I'm going to have a code repository being cloned to my client, one of my ECS, and I will change one line of code and do a check-in, and this kind of check-in will be catched by the container registry directly. Okay, remember in the let me go here. In this here, this is my example. So the first demo, I will leverage this repository, this registry. I already turn on the build image automatically, okay? Which means I will also go here. You can see this is my code repository. I just bind this Docker registry with this code repository. I hate these words. So this is my my very original source code. I connect them, and I'm going to build it through Alibaba Cloud Registry. Okay, so this is the idea. If I push one code, we will trigger the auto build. When the build was done, how can I notify Alibaba Cloud ACK to pick up the image and do the deployment? This kind of process will be using this one, okay, the trigger. Remember, I have something from here, trigger, right? This trigger belongs to this deployment, the simple web application default. This is a deployment, and this deployment belongs to a service. If you know Alibaba Cloud, if you know Kubernetes a little bit, the service is something you can visit from the public. It's just like a web service. So I build this service based on that deployment and give it an entry point like this one. Okay. Let's see what is happening. I have something like this, simple web app. This is my already deployed service. Okay, it has a front page called the version 1. It's all coming from the software I deployed in this Kubernetes cluster, right? Remember, I have a service, I have a deployment, and I have a registry to contain the most latest build and images. How can I change this page? If I want to change this page to version 2, how can I do it? I'm going to show you how can I change it just with one line of code checking. I will change this front page, which is coming from the cluster of the Kubernetes, to turn it into a new page like the version 2. Okay. So now I'm trying to log into one of my ECS. So this is just a ECS. Let me exit to make sure it is. This ECS is actually, let's see, sorry. Let me go back here. Let me open another window to show you the ECS. I just want to make sure this is not a fake demo, it's a real demo, okay? I have some ECS here. Actually, not in Singapore, it's in, how to say, in Malaysia. I have an instance here. Let me change the region to Malaysia. The Kuala Lumpur. You see, this is my public IP address of this ECS, right? It is similar like this one. I'm going to log into this ECS because I'm trying to use this ECS to simulate. I'm a developer. Now I'm a developer. I'm trying to work on my own laptop. This is my one laptop. I have no idea about where the continuous integration environment is. Okay, I just log into it, and I will do something like the git clone, right? To clone my should be here. Sorry, to clone this code repository. Okay. So what I need to do is do something like this, but I'm not going to do this because I already have a cloned workspace, which is here. It's a simple application. I already have everything here. So Git is already installed. I cloned this code repository and put it into this directory. Okay. What I need to do is this is my very small website. And if you go here, you will see something like this. This is my front page website. You already saw this, right? The DevOps version 1 is coming from here. This one, the DevOps version 1. I'm going to change this front page into another word, okay? Or I just copy it, okay? I have a new line of the code, and I'm going to change it to the version 2. So this is the developer's work. They change the code every day, right? And now I change the one line of code. After I do this, I usually do only 3 lines of code. I will do the git add. It's to make sure the git know I changed something, okay? And a git commit with the comments like I change it to version 2, all right? This is a git comment. Now Git knows, okay, you have some changes here, and now you have a commit. You already commit a change. And the last one is you do the push. Remember, this is for the code change push to the GitHub. So you push to the origin, and you to the master branch. Because you are trying to visit the GitHub, so you have to be authorized. So I'm trying to tap into my GitHub password. Oh, sorry, maybe I type it wrong. Oh, Gmail, I typed the Gmail wrong. Okay, now again, I'm a developer. I changed one line of my code. What I want to do is, I want to see this kind of change will be deployed here. But actually, what is happening on the backend that is, if you go here, go to the registry, if you go to this page, and if you refresh, you see something was happening here. Your code was being built automatically here. It's called the building, right? You can go to the log and see what is happening here, actually. A lot of logs are trying to be shown here because we are trying to build your application on the backend. So that's it. I'm saying it's a very good advantage because you don't need to have a build server, right? We don't build the image from your local machine. We just build it somewhere. Alibaba Cloud provided. You see, you keep refresh, and you will see the build is ongoing. They are trying not only build the package, but also build the Dockerfile. So ideally, this will happening in, I think, in 1 or 2 minutes. So when it was building, I'm saying that you can see here. I will give you a little bit more interest about the build, right? You can add a build rule. The build rule means you can select what kind of branch you want, type of the code you want to build, and the branch usually the master. This is a Dockerfile. Why the Dockerfile is important? Because the Dockerfile is tell the compiler that how you want to generate your Docker image. Okay, so Dockerfile is quite important. You have to tell the builder, the builder machine, where is the Dockerfile. So where is my Dockerfile? It's under the source code root directory, which is actually here. Let's say there is a Dockerfile here. Okay, this is my Dockerfile. I have some very interesting lines put in. It's very simple because this is a Java file. It has to involve the Maven to do the kind of the Maven run, to do the package making. And finally, they leverage the Tomcat image and the baseline image and build this new image. Okay, so this is a Dockerfile. Remember, if you want to build a Docker image, the Dockerfile is something you cannot avoid. You have to generate, configure. Now you see my image was built successfully in just 2 minutes, a little bit more than 2 minutes. So what is happening here is if you go here, I believe it's already deployed. Okay, it's now deployed, right? But how can it be deployed just from the build to the container? Is because I have a trigger. Remember, after the build was done, the trigger will be triggered. It will trigger here. It will trigger the deployment. Let's go back to the deployment. This is my deployment. If I click into it, you will see there are something I will show you here. The time now is 3 p.m. My time is almost up. It's 3 p.m. So this pod, okay, this pod is actually deployed just now, right? 1 minute ago, because it is a very latest triggered deployment, and it is a new created pod. This one is also, I have two pod to do the HA. Okay, so which means this deployment is fresh new. That is also when we refresh the service here, from here, right? We got these new pages. Okay, this is the finish the second demo. Again, let's have a quick recap. I have a container registry, right, to connect with the code repository. The developer only needs to do and the related work to interact with the code repository, like the GitHub, the push and the pull of the code. Every check-in will trigger the container registry to do the auto build, and we maintain the build server for you. After the build, with the ACK's trigger hook, we will tell the ACK that a new build was ready. So ACK will pull the build from there, pull the image from there, and using the deployment to deploy it to the Alibaba Cloud container. Okay. So all in all, Alibaba Cloud Container is very capable. Again, you can consider it as an ecosystem. A lot of Alibaba Cloud products can work together with the container service. If you have some takeaway from this training, I would you to recommend this kind of starting point for the ACK. It's easy to use. We have the enterprise level technical support. And we have a lot of best practice we can provide you to help you to deal with the different environment. And also, if you use Docker, use Kubernetes, it gives you a very good strategy to do the multi-cloud deployment. You are not locked in on a particular cloud provider. And the last one is also we have so many different instance types, like the bare metal, like the ECI. It can all go together to support your Docker infrastructure. Okay, that's the starting point for the ACK. So the last page, sorry for the delay. The last page for the DevOps, from the Alibaba Cloud Academy, we have a learning path. Okay, we have a learning path. Now it includes almost 12 1-hour videos. Every course is 1 hour, so it's 12 hours videos. It is almost free. It only costs you 4 cents of the 1 set. Okay, so totally it's only it's almost free. Okay, so just scan this QR code and make sure if you want to get more information and learning material from our Academy website, scan this QR code and reach to the learning path directly, and you can purchase it. It's only available before the end of the March this year. Okay, it's less than 1 month. Please take this chance. Okay, so thank you very much. I know it's a long, tedious presentation. Hopefully, everyone can enjoy this training and know more about Alibaba Cloud. And let me stay online a little bit longer to say if you have some more questions.